Hello again, my name is Veer Animus of VA Games, and I would like to welcome you back to my Sonic 3 and Knuckles Let's Play. Now, we all understood from the beginning that this day was inevitably coming, and this is it. Today I take on the Sandopolis zone, much to my chagrin. This is the 9th stage in the complete adventure, but it's actually only the 3rd stage in the Sonic and Knuckles portion of the game, which I feel is something to consider, given the rather sharp difficulty curve of this level, especially when compared to its predecessor, the Flying Battery. It is also interesting to observe that this is one of the first levels in the Sonic series that incorporates a very Egyptian theme, you know, from the music to the pyramid and the sand-swept dunes in the backdrop. As a matter of fact, if you threw in the goofy writing of Stephen Sommers and the swashbuckling antics of Brendan Fraser, you've got yourself a multi-million-dollar blockbuster, and as it turns out, a ride in Walt Disney World. It also seems as though everything about this stage from start to finish was designed only with pissing you off in mind. It's going to jump at every chance it can get to trash every expectation you might have had for a Sonic platforming experience. First of all, this will use and abuse every last convention or cliché that has ever scared you in a movie about the Walking Dead in a North African desert. Deadly uninhabitable desert? Check. Quicksand? Check. Creepy labyrinthian pyramid? Double check. Sand traps and crushing ceilings a la the 1994 live-action Jungle Book movie? I think you get the idea. The very layout of the level design is a giant Mobius strip of disaster. The bottom boundary of the stage loops back to the top boundary of the stage, just like it did back in the Ice Cap Zone. But this level actually does use that convention in a far more clever, puzzle-oriented way. But that isn't necessarily a good thing. Sonic was always known for high-speed, platforming acrobatics that set him apart from his portly, then rival, now fellow Olympian Mario. All too often, the environmental hazards are going to break up the pace of the gameplay by forcing you to actually stop and wait for rotating platforms or block traps to move in or out of position. The sand pits are also going to slow you down by sticking to Sonic's speedy high tops like mud, and there are even segments of the levels in which you must float in a river of anti-gravity sand that feels a lot like getting into an old, slow elevator amidst a chase. The multitude of block-pushing elements and repelling sequences are going to make the Sandopolis zone feel almost like a dungeon-diving puzzle fest akin to a Zelda title, rather than that of a Sonic game. Don't get me started on the mini-boss for Act 1 either. You only get to fight this guy after you essentially twiddle your thumbs for what is a 20-second animation of a rising pyramid to stop, and it's not even a fight. If you have any degree of ADD, you're going to be seriously tested by this creature who is just as devoid of imagination as he is of a soul. All you need to do is chill out in the quicksand off to the left of the battlefield and wait for Andre the Giant to take a leap of bad faith. Just be sure to uncover the hidden fire shield at the base of the pyramid in the sand, because it'll be useful for Act 2. So just sit back and enjoy the show. Now we're here inside the spacious temple of Act 2, and you must be thinking to yourself, gee, Veer, how could the Sandopolis zone possibly get any worse? Cue the Heodoro. Apparently, when Dr. Robotnik was excavating the temple ruins for whatever purposes, he disturbed some nasty little specters called the Heodoro. But he did manage to seal them away in an animal prison. But if you're playing through Sonic's path, which is the same as Tails, you will be forced to land on this prison and release the Heodoro, which will then stalk you for the remainder of the level. It's also important to note here that since Knuckles' story does take place a brief period of time after Sonic's, if you enter the temple as Knuckles, the Heodoro are already freed by the time you enter. Now, the Heodoro themselves are unique enemies, such that A, they cannot be damaged, B, there are either infinitely many of them, or they never permanently disperse, and C, they, along with the Golem Guardian of Act 1, are among the few enemies Sonic and friends encounter that aren't direct creations of Dr. Robotnik. With the immortality of the living impaired established, you are not entirely defenseless in the face of these poltergeists. Just as air bubbles litter the water levels of previous Sonic games, hanging light switches that temporarily light the temple chambers are scattered throughout Act 2. Make sure you treat them just the same as the air bubbles as well, because when the lights go out, the ghouls are empowered and emboldened and will take their only opportunity to strike at you. There are 4 levels of brightness. When you pull on the switch, it goes to the maximum brightness, and it will dim down a total of 3 times until it's total darkness. The Hyodoro's intimidation factor also increases inversely with the brightness of the stage. Every time the light gets dimmer, they get a little meaner, a little bigger, and a whole lot more annoying. The silver lining to that dark, angsty cloud is that they will only attack you when the light level is at its lowest, and since they won't go away until you reach the end of the act, it is really important to treat those light switches like the aforementioned air bubbles. Suddenly, Sandopolis Act 2 seems a lot like the stop-and-go station from Donkey Kong Country. You know, minus the fun and stuff. If you remember to a couple minutes ago, when I mentioned that the stage has an infinite vertical loop, well, this is what I was talking about. The sand slides will carry you on a never-ending descent straight into hell if you don't know how to break the loop, which is kind of just like it was back in the ice cap. Now, as a kid being too dumb to figure out how to work the Barrel of Doom from Carnival Night that haunted my dreams for years, this was another miraculous anomaly, albeit not quite as terrifying. As you witnessed, you'll have to jump across from one sand slide to another in order to get carried off into the next part of the level. Furthermore, if you miss a certain rappelling sequence, you run the risk of being recycled into the loop via another slide. In all honesty, it's not all that difficult to figure out now, but back then it was something I could only accomplish through dumb luck and trial and error. Not exactly my most entertaining or proud moment, but whatever, you have to make the best of it. Now, when you do finally escape the grasp of the infinite loops and delve into the heart of this crypt, you'll find the true nature of this beast. As if dealing with the Hyodoro, an inhibitive light mechanic, Scorps, and the infinite loop weren't enough, the Sega sadists decided to throw some timed switches and sand traps. Black switches will only temporarily open nearby passageways, which you must then get through before they close. Ordinarily, this wouldn't be a problem for our speed freak hedgehog, so they added the challenge of doing it while escaping a chamber filling with a pool of sand. Nothing like trying to escape a temple imploding on itself, right? But here's a little trick for you. With the second controller, you can actually control your tail slave to hold those black switches in place while you give yourself a head start. It probably would have dampened the difficulty a little bit if I went ahead and used Hypersonic, but I felt that would have kind of taken the fun right out of it. I actually had to restart this level at least a dozen times because I would try to activate the Insta-Shield to spastically take out a Scorp or something, and I'd have more than 50 rings, so I would end up triggering Hypersonic. Besides, I figured it would be more of a liability to use Hypersonic here because of all of the slower-paced design elements in the level. He's a bit more equipped for dealing with the wide open spaces and environments rather than the claustrophobic atmosphere of this stage. He would have also made some of the precision jumps a little bit harder to stick with his oversensitive jumping ability. And as you can see, even I get a little bit lost here in the confusing environment, but we do mostly come out of it intact, so don't get too discouraged. And although I don't show you in this video, there are actually quite a few hidden special stage rings in the Sandopolis zone, but I didn't plan on unveiling them since I figured I did enough of that in the last 2 episodes. Figured if you couldn't, get it by now, probably shouldn't get it at all. As luck would have it, though, I accidentally ventured into the chamber for the ring placed just before the boss of the level, so feel free to take that one as a freebie and run with that. All of my complaints about this stage aside, and there were quite a bit of them, I actually really enjoyed fighting the boss of the stage. Ordinarily, he is exceptionally easy to dispatch without taking any damage, but in the spirit of my most recent submissions, I did really, really terribly. Just jump on his arms and bust away the facade of the machine to reveal the fat ugly slob within. Tails is particularly helpful here. All you need to do is land a few hits while dodging the slow-moving laser beam and the spikes on the end of his fist to finally clear what I describe as the most difficult level of the game. The next one up is one of the best Sonic levels of all time, the Lava Reef Zone, so I am very excited for that one. I'll see you over there. In the meantime, please rate, subscribe, check me out on Facebook and Twitter.